Why detachment is often misunderstood. Most people think detachment means not caring. They imagine someone cold, distant, emotionally shut down. But that's not detachment. That's avoidance. Real detachment is something very different and much harder. Detachment is staying calm when emotions try to pull you apart. It's being involved in life without being controlled by it. And here's the paradox most people miss. The people who appear strongest emotionally are often the least attached. They don't cling to outcomes. They don't depend on approval. They don't let every situation decide how they feel. In this video, we'll break down why detachment isn't weakness, but psychological strength, and how learning to care less about the wrong things allows you to live better, think clearer, and stay in control. But to understand detachment, we first need to see why attachment creates so much suffering in the first place. Attachment is the root of emotional suffering. Attachment feels natural. You attach to results, to people, to expectations, to how things should go. But psychologically, attachment creates a fragile emotional system. When your happiness depends on outcomes, you lose stability. When your self-worth depends on opinions, you lose freedom. And when your peace depends on other people's behavior, you lose control. This is why anxiety thrives in attachment. The mind constantly asks, what if this goes wrong? What if I lose this? What if they don't approve? Stoic philosophy and modern psychology agree on one thing here. The more tightly you cling, the more vulnerable you become. Detachment doesn't remove meaning from life. It removes emotional hostage situations. And once you see this, the idea of detachment starts to feel less threatening and more necessary. Detachment is about control, not escape. Many people avoid detachment because they think it means giving up. But detachment is not quitting life. It's choosing what deserves power over you. Psychologically, detachment is a boundary. You still care, you still act, you still commit effort, but you stop letting outcomes dictate your emotional state. This is where Stoic thinking aligns perfectly with modern emotional regulation. You control effort, you control intention, you control response. Everything else becomes information, not a threat. Detached people are not passive, they're precise. They don't suppress emotion. They observe it without letting it take over. And that observation creates something rare in today's world: clarity. When you detach, you think more clearly. Strong emotions narrow perception. When you're overly attached, your thinking becomes reactive. You rush decisions. You defend positions. You interpret everything personally. Detachment creates cognitive distance. That distance allows you to see situations as they are, not as your fears interpret them. Psychologically, this is powerful. Detached people pause before responding. They evaluate instead of reacting. They see options others miss because their emotions aren't clouding judgment. This doesn't make them slower. It makes them accurate. And accuracy, over time, looks like confidence. People trust those who aren't emotionally desperate, not because they're cold, but because they're stable. Which leads to another quiet advantage of detachment most people never notice. Detachment makes you harder to manipulate. Manipulation feeds on emotion, guilt, fear, approval seeking, urgency. If someone can control how you feel, they can influence how you act. Detached people are difficult to manipulate because they don't react automatically. They don't rush to fix discomfort. They don't panic when pressure appears. Instead, they ask simple internal questions. Is this actually my responsibility? Is this worth my emotional energy? Stoics believed emotional independence was a form of freedom. Modern psychology would call it internal locus of control. Either way, the result is the same. You move through life with less friction. You're still human. You still feel. But you're no longer easy to pull off center. Conclusion: care less about the wrong things. Detachment isn't about not caring. It's about caring with intention, caring less about approval, less about outcomes you can't control, less about things that drain your peace, and caring more about clarity, about effort, about how you respond. When you detach, life doesn't become empty. It becomes quieter. And in that quiet, you gain strength most people never develop because they're too attached to let go. If this perspective helped you see detachment differently, take a moment to like the video, subscribe, and stay connected for more insights on mastering your inner world.